Audio made possible by www.jackettome.com. Audio Fanfiction Productions presents Wide Awake. Fanfiction written by Angskata003. Fanfiction inspired by the Twilight Saga written by Stephanie Meyer. Chapter 21. Malted Chocolate Smiles. Bella's point of view. That smile. That crooked, glorious, radiant, sexy, seductive smile. He had never smiled at me like that. And I knew that smile. I had only seen him use it on two occasions. One was to get Mrs. Cope to excuse an absence. The other was to get free pudding from the lunch lady. That smile was Edward's weapon for women. He knew once he used it, they'd be putty at his feet. And, my God, did it work. I don't know if it was the kiss or the 12 days without me, but something about how he looked at me had changed. In a very, very good way. So when I got home, I was downright giddy. The trial was behind me, Phoenix was behind me, and I still had Edward. And possibly the chance to get a little more of him than I had previously expected. I was hoping, and I was okay with it. Alice and me were lying in the living room in their pajamas when I got in. I snuck back to my room and dropped my book bag off and brushed my horrifyingly tangled hair before I went to see them. They were just lounging. And when they caught sight of my refreshed giddy Edward face, they smiled widely at me. I was aware it was a complete 360 from yesterday's mood. Edward had that kind of effect on me. I slid my hoodie off and flopped down on the couch between them. I could tell by their happy smiles that I hadn't been caught. Esme patted my knee and smiled at me sweetly before she lifted herself off the couch in her pink pajamas and stretched, walking out of the room to get dressed. And I remembered how much I wanted to giggle with Alice again, so I took my shoes off and sat Indian style facing her, conjuring up the teenage girl inside of me. Alice. My voice was still slightly scratchy, but nearly back to normal. I painted a very serious expression on my face, and she arched an eyebrow. "Spill it," I asked seriously, needing to know what was happening with Jasper. Her face lit up and she turned toward me, mimicking my position, and nearly vibrating. She giggled once. "Jasper is amazing," she squeaked, drawing out the word out and rolling her eyes in the back of her head a bit. I giggled with her, loving that things were finally happening between them. I waved my hand for her to continue. I needed details. She giggled again. "We spent all week together." She looked around the room and leaned into me with her hand cupping her mouth, and continued in a scandalous whisper. "And the janitor closet is now color-coordinated." I couldn't help it. I really tried to keep it to giggles, but that had me nearly falling off the couch in loud, raucous laughter. I could just imagine poor Jasper's face when she stopped making out long enough to realize the closet was too filthy for her standards. She laughed along with me, and it felt so light and carefree. Once her giggles had died down, she continued. "And the kissing thing," she sighed with a dreamy look. She shook her head a little, making her black spiky hair bounce, and met my gaze again with a wide smile. "The kissing is almost better than the sex." She wiggled her eyebrows suggestively. I gaped at her. Openly. Shocked. Though I really shouldn't have been. Alice was no virgin. The leather pants said it all. She giggled at me and rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Bella," she chided, slapping my knee playfully. "Don't look so shocked." She smiled. And I smiled back. Because at least they gave it a couple weeks. I hoped. And maybe, if I took her indiscretions well, she would take it easy on me if she ever found out about Edward. I stopped asking questions after that. Jasper was my second favorite guy, and I didn't want to compromise that fact with a really bad case of TMI. I spent the rest of my day unpacking and reevaluating my Edward situation. I was wondering if I should go farther with my previous plan of little steps to show him that I liked him. I figured now was probably a pretty good time to give it a shot, seeing as how he was looking at me differently. And definitely smiling at me differently. Plus, I already basically tried to have sex with him through pajamas. It was no time to be coy about something like a little flirting. So when Alice begged me to let her do my hair again, I gratefully accepted. And not only because I thought Edward would like it, and I knew he would because I saw the 3 different sketches of the hair in his sketchbook, but because I just like spending the time with Alice. She somehow amplified the teenage girl inside of me, and I used to hate that, but now it just felt good to be normal. Or as normal as I could possibly get. She brushed and doted on my long brown locks for 2 hours. Making it shiny again, curling it just like last time. She had a heavy look of concentration on her face as I gazed at her through the vanity mirror. I wasn't lying when I told Edward she wished her hair was longer. But she sorely lacks the self-control to grow it out. I watched her this time, seeing the way she smiled when a curl came out perfectly bouncy, and the way she frowned when she didn't hold the hair in the iron long enough, and it sagged. Of course, in typical Alice fashion, she would pick it up and redo it with narrowed eyes. I was wondering if her perfectionist tendencies were spreading to Jasper yet. I didn't even think grubby was in her vocabulary. She talked distractedly while she was curling, telling me about things I missed in school, before it let out for the Christmas holiday. Mike Newton was with Jessica again, and I had to smile because they were perfect for each other in all the wrong ways. Once she finished, she did a little bow/curtsy at all the shiny curls. I giggled at her and shook my head, making the curls bounce around. She smiled wider. I made chicken Alfredo for dinner. It was really for Edward, but Esme and Alice loved it all the same. Christmas was coming up in a week, and school was already out for holiday vacation. So Alice was roping me into a shopping excursion. I told her no 5 times, and she resorted to the pout. And I gave in. She knew how to play me like a fiddle. When 9 came and Alice and Esme went to bed, I began a batch of cookies, and I knew automatically what the most significant event in my day was. So I packed up all the chicken Alfredo and malted chocolate smiles and went to go see Edward at 10. I left my hood down again, and I looked in the mirror before I left. The ridiculously shiny curls stayed all day long, though I had removed the rather painful clips. I rolled my eyes at my reflection again, and walked out the door, bouncing curls and all. There wasn't any rain again, and I was thankful for the sake of the hair. I stalked across the yard and climbed the lattice, faring better after a long night's sleep than the previous evening. I could feel all my hair bouncing around as I climbed, and made my way over the railing. I knocked quietly, and Edward was waiting by the door for me. When he saw me standing on the balcony with all my shiny bouncy hair blowing around in the light breeze, he got a strange look on his face. I wasn't sure what it meant, but I inched my way past him and into the room, and began unloading his meal onto the bed. "You're probably really hungry, huh?" I chuckled while unpacking the Alfredo, imagining him having to make his own food for 12 days. He didn't answer me or jump on the bed, like always, so after my bag was emptied, I turned around. And he was standing right behind me, still staring at me blankly. I furrowed my eyebrows, wondering what the problem was. But instead of answering the silent question, he reached up a hand and tucked away a curl behind my ear, following his movements with his eyes. Then I blushed, as if the whole shiny curl situation wasn't nearly obvious enough without it. He slowly lowered his hand and broke his gaze from my hair, and walked to his bed in silence, flopping down in front of the food. He opened the container and his eyes widened. And I chuckled again, because I knew he'd be starving. When he heard my chuckle, he looked over at me, still standing beside the bed, and smiled that same crooked smile. My breath hitched, just like it did when he did it this morning. And my face grew hotter. Appropriately mortified of my reactions, I turned quickly away, and shuffled my feet to the couch. The iPod was on the sofa waiting for me, and I smiled when I saw it, having missed the music. I flopped down, bouncing my curls all over the place, and scooped it up, putting the earbuds in my ears.
"Alice again?"
I heard Edward mumble from the bed with his mouth full.